let's go ahead and get started with today's meetup. So again, thank you everyone for joining. Today's topic is advanced use cases of ChatGPT in XR. And so XR, for those of you who don't know, means extended reality, which is a mix between augmented reality and virtual reality. And if you don't know what those two are, the difference is augmented reality means you're watching a live camera view. Everything looks like it's happening in your living room. And virtual reality means you're getting transported to another world. So you're literally inside the video game. You look around, everything's digital. You can't see your couch in your living room. So that's the difference. And the reason why we're covering both is because really they're the same technology, especially as we move forward through 2023. I think a lot of the headsets like the Oculus Quest 2 and many other of the best headsets will say they use cameras to track as well. So really, whether you're using virtual reality or augmented reality, it really is the same technology. It's all based on a game engine. So everything you'll learn today should work for Swift, it should work for SceneKit, it should work for Unity, it should work for Unreal Engine 5. It's not necessarily specific to any game engine. I'm more so going through different use cases and showing examples of how you can get ChatGPT to do the hard things for you. And then so a quick breakdown of how this meetup exists and why it exists. So back in 2018, we started AR Today. This used to be an in-person meetup. I would really love to get back to in-person events soon, but right now I think virtual really allows us to be really flexible and to reach as many people as possible. But AR Today has always been a great meetup. I started it to just teach people how to build apps, specifically augmented reality apps. And usually in this hour segment, I would teach you how to build an app. Today's session will be more focused on different use cases, so I don't think we have quite enough time to build a specific app, but we will look at a few different cool examples that could definitely make your apps a lot better. Beneath that AR Today logo, you'll see that kind of blue flower looking logo there. Probably should have put my company's name next to it, but that's the logo for my company. It's Near Future Marketing. And that is the parent company of AR Today. So AR Today is a free meetup, but my business, the name of my business is Near Future Marketing. And so this is where you would find all of my apps and all of my other work related to AR. It's all connected to Near Future. And last but not least, that's me at the bottom. And again, my name is Casey. So nice to meet you if we haven't met yet. And so let's start off with some good news that I got directly from Apple. So I will be attending WWDC 23 this year. For those of you who don't know, WWDC stands for Worldwide Developers Conference, and it's Apple's yearly developer event. It's very, very exclusive, very hard to get into. You can't even buy a ticket. It really is just like a raffle. So I was blessed and lucky enough to win again this year. I did win last year. I think I put a picture here. I won last year. There's me in the back with the peace sign, but really, really great experience, really fun. Met developers from all over the world, got to talk to some of Apple's best engineers and, ask those hard questions about AR and the future of AR and what can I do currently with AR. And so definitely a really great event. If you're going to be there, hit me up, add me on LinkedIn, email me, whatever, but I would love to meet up if you're going to be there at the event. But that's this June. I don't like to speak on rumors too much, especially because I have a great relationship with Apple personally through the Entrepreneur Camp. But I will say I think that this year will be a really big year for augmented reality. I can't promise anything, but what I can say is I will be there, and I'll also be hosting a live meetup from the event as well, because I think that day will be pretty significant when it comes to AR, VR. And I think, we'll all want to talk about that as soon as possible. So look forward to that. I'm going to be announcing that event soon. I'll post it up. But yeah, we'll do a live event from DubDub this year because why not? I feel like, no one else is going to be doing a live event, so we might as well do one. But again, I think this is going to be a really, really, really big year for AR, VR. And I'm really looking forward to any announcements that come out of WWDC 23. Let's move on here. Tutoring and private lessons. So this is something I added to my website a while back, but I never quite mentioned it. But tutoring, so whether you're an adult or a child or whoever you are, I am offering tutoring and private lessons now. So for children, again, everything's focused on AR, VR, and AI. But for children specifically, I think I really want to push a big focus on the AR, VR half of things. But definitely, if you're an adult, if you own a business, If you work at a business, if whatever your occupation is, definitely you could probably learn a lot more about AR, VR, and AI, especially as we see these huge leaps in technology this year. So go ahead and check out that link. Again, I'm offering private lessons for students, for teachers, for faculty, whoever you are. I would love to teach you a little bit of what I know. And more specifically, that includes programming, that includes building an AI model from scratch. And if you need to learn about hardware and some of that stuff, I can teach you some of that as well. But really, the big focus here is on the software engineering side. I really love programming. I'm a self-taught programmer. And now to be able to give back and spend that time, especially with children, that's something that I'm just really passionate about and I would love to do. So check out that site there. And yeah, I would love to hook you up with some private lectures. And I'll even throw this out there just for anyone who's watching this meetup today. I'll give you your first lesson free just because why not? I really want to roll this out. So if you really are interested in receiving some type of tutoring or private lessons, I will offer anyone watching this live right now 2 hours of my time absolutely free just to get you started. All right, and then we talked about this in our last meetup, and I think I put a due date on it, and I shouldn't have done that because it's not here yet. But the AR Today virtual store is actually coming soonish. So I made a lot of changes. I think I mentioned that in the last meetup, as I'm a bit of a perfectionist sometimes, especially with an entire world. So for the virtual store, even those trees, I'll say those trees are not there anymore. I redesigned them with some palm trees instead, and I just did a few different designs on the store. And also I rebuilt the engine. That's really what took so long is I rebuilt the underlying engine that powers all of this. And so in rebuilding Ogma OS, I built the next version of it. It took a lot of time. It took some testing and it really, I built the app and then I basically rebuilt it from scratch all over again. So the app's coming out very soonish. It's in review now. And I'm really looking forward to this because, again, this is a virtual store that works on your iPhone, your iPad. You can walk around the store. You can move as close as you want to anything. You can interact. There's all sorts of secrets hidden throughout the store. And once this is here, again, hint, hint, if there were other augmented reality capable devices that were released this year by Apple, we'll be more specific here, this type of app would probably work on day one. That's just, again, I don't have any secret knowledge or anything like that, but I will say based on my experience in the industry, if you're building a native ARKit app using Swift, it will most likely be future-proofed for any updates that Apple may do in the future. So that's kind of always been my ethos here for the last 5 or 6 years. So it's really exciting to see where AR is about to go. Oh, and then in mentioning that, I'm glad I forgot about this. Let's hit the play button here. I don't think my audio is quite sharing, so hopefully you can hear it through the mic. All right, there we go. I didn't know how long that was. So that's just a really, really quick snip. Probably could have done a little bit better there, but again, I recorded this on my iPad yesterday at the park, super quick, just to have something to show you. But the big sky above us 3.0. So this was my first ever augmented reality app. And I don't think I can rewind this. There we go. So you can see here, it starts off in AR and we switch over now to VR. So this is something new that I've added in version 3.0. Now you can switch in between AR mode or VR mode. But again, this app is called The Big Sky Above Us. It was my first ever augmented reality app. I released it 6 years ago, believe it or not. It's crazy how fast time flies. But I released this alongside the iPhone 10. So when that first iPhone with the notch launched, I actually launched this app the first week that that phone came out. And what's unique about this app, what's really special about this app, it has the entire solar system, and each and every planet and moon has its own song that I produced back in 2014. So I took a bunch of music that I had never released and I mapped each one to a different moon and planet, whichever one it sounded like. And this is the result. It's the world's first ever augmented reality album. I can say that with a straight face, looking dead into the camera, because I've done the research and I know that when I published this in 2017, it was the world's first ever augmented reality album, meaning that all of the music that you'll hear here is completely contained in the app and you can only find it in the app. So really cool experience. I added a lot of new features because, again, I built this app 6 years ago. So I realized, looking at my downloads, that it was one of my most downloaded apps. And again, I hadn't updated it in 6 years, so I felt like it was a very poor reflection on what I'm capable of doing with AR VR. So yeah, huge update coming. I wish I could show you all the features in one video here. This video just kind of shows you that AR VR mode and me moving it around a little bit. But this is a really cool app. It's completely free. It teaches you about the solar system. It's really, really cool. And yeah, it will be coming out, I believe, next week. Same thing. This one's completely done. I've already gone ahead and started submitting it. I just need to do the screenshots. That's what's left. Is I have to go out and do a lot of photography. It's really intensive. So yeah, once I finish all the photography that's related to this, again, I have to go out in person and take these pictures in some nice looking places. Once I do that, you should see this app in the App Store next week. Well, it's already in the App Store, but again, version 3.0, which is a huge, 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 huge leap from version 1.0 or 2.0, is going to be, it's definitely worth trying. So there's a beta link. I put it in our resources, which I'll show you at the end of this meetup. But let's go ahead and continue, because I know we want to talk about ChatGPT and not just the apps I've already made. So we'll go ahead and hit next. And so the last slide here that's unrelated to ChatGPT is going to be our volunteering slide here. So I started this meetup, as I mentioned, back in 2018. The way I got into creating a meetup was I actually used to volunteer for different meetups. So there's another meetup in the Bay Area here. I believe it's called Computer Vision and Machine Learning, and it's a long title, but it's where I got my start. And basically, this is how you can get your start. So joining this meetup here, again, I run this all by myself. I've been doing it for years, but I would love to have other people included in this. And I will say, I've had some really great opportunities come out of volunteering for meetups. So just going off the list here, there's free gifts and there's rare speaking opportunities. I mean, I had an opportunity to speak at Google many years ago, but again, that opportunity came from me volunteering with the meetup. And from me speaking at Google, what happened is someone in the audience saw me, and what do you know? That person is the dean of UC Berkeley, and he invites me to teach at Berkeley. They paid me $200 an hour for like 4 hours. Again, really random things and experiences that happened from me giving away my time for free. But again, it did eventually come back to really help me and pay off. So definitely you'll get some free gifts and rare speaking opportunities. Learn how to code. So just how I mentioned, that I can do tutoring and I can teach you things. If you're volunteering for me, I would love to teach you anything free of charge for however long you'd like to learn. Access exclusive events and conferences. As I mentioned, again, like when you're in a meetup community, you get a lot of email invites, a lot of messages, a lot of offers on LinkedIn. So I actually do get a lot of invites that I turn down. But again, if you're volunteering, you'll have more opportunities to turn down. And some paid work. Again, this is my business. I do all of this on my own. I incorporated this. I pay my taxes. I do everything. So yeah, if I can afford to pay you for whatever the work is, I will definitely pay you. But outside of that, again, volunteering is just the ability to be a part of the community that I think will really, really push you far if this is something you're interested in. So if you are interested, please email me. It's volunteer@nearfuture.marketing. All right, and so let's hop into ChatGPT stuff. And so I copied these 3 slides from our last meetup because I just wanted to remind you of my made up rules that I made. And so rule number 1 is to try to break your problem down as much as possible before you ask ChatGPT. And I underline this, but you need a specific problem to solve. I think what people don't realize, they think of ChatGPT, it's an AI, it's smart, oh my gosh, it's amazing. No, it really just is highlighting the patterns in all the data in the world, or at least all the data that it's collected. And so you can say, hey, ChatGPT, can you build me a video game? And it might build you a very simple video game. How simple? It could just be a button with a label that says 0. And every time you press the button, it adds 1 point to your score. And that technically is a game. So you need to be more specific. If we were to say, hey, can you make me a game in augmented reality where we bounce a ball off the wall, and every time I catch the ball, I get a point, and every time I drop the ball, I lose a point. ChatGPT could do that as well. Again, you just need to really break down that problem and be more specific about what the problem is. Rule number 2, you may need to feed ChatGPT info before you ask, especially if it's a personal question or about a product that launched after 2021. So there are some workarounds with this now, or at least for some people. But the main one is, yeah, if you are asking ChatGPT about something that happened in 2023, most likely if you're using the free version, you'll need to go ahead and prompt it with some information about what you're talking about. And what I mean is, let's say there's an article about the new PlayStation 7 that just came out, right? Well, obviously, ChatGPT doesn't know much about the PlayStation 7. So what you could do is you could copy an article describing the release of the PlayStation 7, paste that in, and then afterwards, then you can ask questions and say, hey, what might be a great game to build for the PlayStation 7? So that's one example. But again, definitely more information, the better. And this follows the theme of the first rule, which again, the more specific you are, the better. And then rule number 3, there is no right way to use ChatGPT. If you don't get the answer you desire, you're probably asking it wrong. And I say this because, again, there's different versions of ChatGPT. There's all sorts of answers, and sometimes it does lie. So you do kind of need to know, whether or not it's lying. But I will say, there's no right way. It really, the technology is intended so that any human in the world can use whatever language or slang that they want. And again, the AI will find those patterns and understand exactly what your intent is. So this is huge. And I think, people get really wrapped up in, oh, am I doing it right? Am I doing this? If you don't get the answer that you're looking for, again, you're probably asking it wrong. So maybe ask some follow-up questions or provide more information before you ask your question, and you'll probably get the answer you're looking for. All right, and so I'll go ahead and move on. I didn't mention this earlier, but if you have any questions, please feel free to type those questions in the chat. I'll try to tackle those. Going forward in the future, we're actually going to do our meetups on YouTube. So this is our last meetup on Teams. So I do appreciate you for being here, but I think going forward, I really want a bigger show. I want better production. I want multiple camera angles and all that stuff. And I'm just not finding that capability here with Teams at the moment. So yeah, we're moving to YouTube. That way you get those live notifications when we do go live. And I think it will be a lot more interactive when it comes to questions and things like that. All right, so give me 1 second here. I'm just gonna pull something up on the side. And then let's go ahead to our next slide. And so the first place we'll start with how you can use ChatGPT in XR is NPCs. I think this is a huge one that, again, not a lot of people maybe are aware of, but definitely this is something that is a huge benefit to any game designer in the world. And so let's go ahead here. I'm just opening the chat so I can see the questions. They pop in, perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. So NPCs, or non-playable characters. So the main, what's really great about this is you can have endless conversations, and these agents would have the potential to remember past experiences. So I'll show you some examples in the next slide, but this is huge. You can have random characters in your video game like you already have, but if you've ever played a video game and talked to a random character who's not important, you'll notice that they have 1 or 2 lines. They might say, ow, or how you doing, or don't talk to me, right? Well, now we can have endless conversations with those characters. They can say, hey, I was at the bar last night and this happened and blah, 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 whatever you want. But the point is, it really makes the world feel way more immersive when each and every single person that you see is an actual character that you can converse with and again have an intelligent conversation with. Another great thing I've found is you can personify animals and objects like dogs, plants, books, etc. So this is a huge one for me. For those of you who know, I have been working on an app called Hollow Garden for quite some time now, but it's an augmented reality app for gardening. And one of the use cases that I haven't actually announced, but I'll go ahead and tell you now, that I found for ChatGPT within my gardening app is to ask ChatGPT to pretend to be a specific species of plant. And this is something that, I didn't think of. And then one day I tried it and I realized like, whoa, this is genius because it works. So you can ask ChatGPT to pretend to be, let's say, an apple tree. We'll just keep it simple. That's a plant that everybody knows. So you can ask it to be an apple tree, and then you can say, hey, why are your leaves yellow, Mr. Apple Tree? Or hey, when do you think you'll be dropping fruit? Or how often should I water you, Mr. Apple Tree? And again, the plant can then talk back to you. So this is, I think, a huge unexplored area that people haven't really caught on to yet, but you can use ChatGPT to pretend to be inanimate objects. So again, same thing. You could have a dog. You could feed it to, let's say, and not feed the dog, but feed the image of the dog to a machine learning model that can at least at the bare minimum say, oh, it's a pug, or oh, it's a Rottweiler, or oh, it's a Chihuahua. And from there, we could have ChatGPT take on those different personas and say, hey, pretend to be a Chihuahua who's sleeping. Now pretend to be a Chihuahua who's angry, or I don't know, whatever is going on in that camera scene could be passed along to ChatGPT using the API. And again, really create a more realistic conversation with that dog or that plant or that book. We can also simulate interactions with specific customer types. Examples would be like a small business owner, angry grocery store customer, or whoever else. So again, very, very key here because you can place these specific customers inside of your virtual world. And you could say, hey, let's say we had a character whose name was Mr. Tommy. We'll just make that up here. And so Mr. Tommy, we can say he's, a very nice, sweet, old man, caring. He has, I don't know, 10 grandchildren. He's just a great character, right? Well, I can describe this to ChatGPT and it will take that small description. And again, it could pretend to be that character for the rest of that character's life. So very, very huge use cases here. And so on the low level, again, randomly generated quips and comments. If you just wanted something really small, you just wanted a list of random responses, you could ask ChatGPT and you could have a pre-made list of responses that live locally in that code so they never have to go over the internet and they load really, really fast. But on the high level, as I mentioned, you could have a fully functional town with coordinated event planning. And we'll talk more about this in the next slide. But what I'm trying to say is these agents, now that they have the ability to talk, they can't just talk to you, they can actually talk to each other as well. And in being able to talk to each other, they can make plans inside of the virtual world that you created. So the rabbit hole goes really, really deep. Let's go to the next slide so you can see an example of that. And so this is something that this article was published earlier this month. It was done by Stanford and Google, I believe, this study. But this happened this month right here in the Bay Area. Basically, they took ChatGPT, they created a tiny little town, and they powered every single NPC by ChatGPT, and they just observed for like a week or so just to see, hey, what would happen if we built a town of fake people? And it was very interesting because they saw things that, they didn't expect. They saw people taking walks in the park, finishing a morning routine, joining for coffee at a cafe. But then as they started to do these things, they also noticed that the characters would make plans, and then those plans, kind of like a virus in a way, would spread through other agents. So let's say, two people in the coffee shop are having a conversation about a party. This was an actual example, but they were throwing some type of party, let's say just a little get together, and they invited two people. Well, one of those people goes on the next day and he's talking to someone random in the town. Let's say he's at the school and he's talking to someone in school and he's like, hey, did you hear about Lisa's party? And the other one's like, oh, no, I didn't hear about that. He's like, oh, yeah, you should come. We're throwing a party for Lisa. It's at the coffee cafe or whatever. And now that person who learned about it at school goes home, he tells his friend, and the moral of the story is something went from an idea to like a huge event within this town. And I think that's a very, very big deal because it wasn't something that the developers created. It was something that, again, ChatGPT was just like, one agent was like, hey, we should throw a party. And eventually, by word of mouth, through this little town here, news of that party spread. And I think just about everyone in the town went to the party. So it's not just like, simple input output basic responses. This can scale up to a full 3D world with hundreds, thousands, millions of people if you had enough memory, storage, and bandwidth. Oh, and then here's a 3D example of that. So this one was by a developer, and I put some links. I have a link list here that you can find all the links in. But this one was a developer just showing off an example. This video is actually 2 years old, but I think it's a really great example. And again, I really like highlighting individual developers. So let's go ahead and watch this video. I don't know if the audio will come through, which kind of sucks, but let's see here.
I'm talking about it. Hello, Bobby. What do you want? Where are you going? I have to go to work. I'm already late and my boss will punish me if I show up even later. Please leave. I can't help you right now. Where do you work?
So there's about an 8-second delay. Again, this is from 2 years ago.
I work at City Hall. It's a government building in the center of town. It's a huge and beautiful building. You can't miss it. What street is it on? You're smart. I like that about you. City Hall is located on City Hall Street location. All right, goodbye. Goodbye. Okay, we'll talk to this hot dog man. Hey, hot dog man. What can I get you?
All right, so that's the end of that video there, the little clip. But yeah, this is a great example. And again, this is from 2 years ago, so you can only imagine how it's scaled up or how it could scale up. But basically, yeah, this is just using ChatGPT as an API. So what's happening is he's doing all of this in virtual reality, and the microphone picks up his audio, records it, transcribes it to text, packages that up, sends it over the internet to ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT sends back a response. And again, it all gets decoded and brought back into audio. So really, really cool demo here. But this is here. It's not like something that's like, oh, that's research and it'll be here in 5-10 years. No, this is something that you can go on YouTube, look up the instructions, and set up for yourself right now. I actually wanted to give a demo of this, but I realized that if I gave demos of everything I'm talking about today, I probably wouldn't have too much time. So we're focusing more on just here it is, here's the examples, here's the links, and we'll go from there. Because again, all of this, it doesn't matter what game engine you use, it all works the same. All right, let's go to the next one. Input and output function. So this one's pretty straightforward. With programming, I taught myself. So the way I've always seen it, and I can't necessarily say this is it, but the way I've always seen it is that there's an input and there's an output. And that's just how I see all code, all apps, everything is that there's an input, there's an output. If the output isn't what you want it, then you probably messed up on the input. And yeah, it's that simple. So let's take a look at some of the examples, because this is where it really gets a little bit more technical. So what's really key here is that you need to know what you're asking for. And I mentioned this in the first slide, and I'm bringing this back up because, again, you can ask for anything, but it's more so the format and the how is really what's important. So let's start at the top. 3D randomness, whether that's position, size, or color. If you want it to randomly scatter objects throughout your scene, ChatGPT can definitely create a great function for you to do that. And again, you want to focus on the input and the output. So I'll show you an example later, but definitely for 3D randomness in our iPhone environment, which is SceneKit, we would use a function that basically takes in a node and it gives it a random position. I think, again, it'll make more sense when I actually show you the code. So let's keep going here. We have our UI image to QR code, and I might have an example in these slides, but I showed this in our last meetup. I asked ChatGPT to write some code that simply took in a UI image or an image from the camera and scans it to convert it to a QR code. So again, pretty relatively simple code, but it's not necessarily something I want it to hook up. So I asked ChatGPT. ChatGPT gave me a great answer. That answer works. Why would I change it? Same thing for animations. We talked about this in our last meetup as well. But if you have a node, if you have an object that you'd like to animate, and again, these are simple animations. So think something like a stapler moving up and down, or a car driving straight down the street, or whatever those more simple animations are. Definitely, you can ask ChatGPT to make something hover up and down, or make it shake left and right, or whatever you need. Strings, to format strings. So if you're not a programmer, some of these words may be going over your head, but strings are essentially just text. And if you wanted to take some text and format it, let's say you had paragraphs and paragraphs like the big sky above us. I have paragraphs that I've written for that app because I had to write all my own descriptions about each and every planet and moon. I don't want to get sued, so I didn't just copy and paste whatever descriptions I could find on the internet. Instead, I actually went in and wrote my own descriptions. Unfortunately, I wrote that app 6 years ago, so all the descriptions were all jumbled together. All the text was just one big block of text, and it worked because, they're facts, so all the facts are there. But when you're reading it, it just looks like this huge word vomit, and it wasn't really concise or easy to understand. And so what I did is I started formatting it myself by spacing out the lines and stuff, but it's really taken some time. So once I took that message, the original message, and I showed ChatGPT, hey, can you make this message look like this message? So I showed it the original and I showed it the after, and I said, hey, can you do this for the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one? And it did that. So very simple use case here, not really an advanced use case, but if you need to format some things, I would say if it's a lot of text, maybe try ChatGPT first. Same thing with messages. If you had a message and you wanted to create a secret code so that anyone who reads this message can't read it unless they have the secret password, ChatGPT is a great way to do that. I could spend all day creating my own code. Like, I'm a coder, I know how to write code. I can make this on my own, but why would I do that when I can just ask ChatGPT and I get back a great answer? And on top of that, by creating that message to encoded message function, I can also ask it to create a decoding method. So that way, again, we have a message. I want it to get scrambled up so that nobody can read it. And then maybe later on at a later date, or a different person can take the key and unscramble the message that I sent them. Visual effects and shaders. So this is where things get really cool, because if you're aware of visual effects and shaders specifically, what they do is they modify how 3D objects look in the scene without really changing anything, if that makes sense. That's the simplest way I can explain it. So traditionally, in a video game, let's say, you'll see a 3D model, let's say like Fortnite. You'll have a character who's running around the map. So, there's different animations. They stand, they have an animation for running, and they have an animation for jumping. But what shaders do is completely different. It's more so if you wanted something to deform, if you wanted something to move in a trippy way, if you want to see some things that look like, psychedelic experiences, then I think shaders is what you're asking for. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but shaders are, mathematical, beautiful visual effects that are applied to the 3D objects in your scene. And it's a whole subsection of 3D design that can, there's people who specialize just in shaders. And I think asking ChatGPT for help in that area can really move you forward. Audio modulation. So we just saw in that last example where we had some NPCs who could talk back. Well, there are some built-in speaking functions inside of iOS through what's called AV Foundation. And so you can ask ChatGPT to help you kind of modulate that audio to help it sound more realistic, and it will do that. That's something I've done in the past, so that's why I put it on the slides. And then physics and particle effects. So particles are just things like imagine like snow or rain in a video game. Again, why would I spend so much time trying to create the perfect snow, the perfect rainfall, when I could at least start with ChatGPT and then, polish it from there? So definitely all of these different advanced kind of things to do. I would say, yeah, start with ChatGPT and then just kind of, polish it. And so here's some examples of those visual effects and shaders. And I linked to this tutorial in our links here, so I'll show you where that link is at the end. But this is what shaders do. They take a normal object and they bend and deform it in all of these different trippy ways that you can't necessarily do on your own, or with the basic code that's just inside of the game engine. So you can see there on the left side, they made a flag and the flag flaps in the wind. But again, that flag is actually just a single plane. It's just like a piece of paper, like a rectangle. And rather than going to Blender and creating all these different animations that do the exact same thing every time, this shader can actually respond and adjust each individual vertices in that 3D model, creating a much more advanced animation that's much more reactive as well. Same thing in the middle. You can see that, again, we're just taking a cube and we're kind of skewing it in all these different directions, creating this really trippy kind of effect there. And on that last one, we're using a combination of image tracking and a shader. So you can see as we turn the card, the physics of the card being turned actually cause the shader to react and kind of flap, again, like flapping in the wind, but much more violently the more you shake it. So that's what shaders do. And again, really, really great area to ask ChatGPT about. We'll take a look at some examples after our slides. All right, mimicking nature and biology. So this is where, again, you're really going to have to find that specific example you're looking for. But I can tell you that in every example that I've tried, I've been pleasantly surprised. And so mimicking nature and biology. So I actually asked ChatGPT for some examples as well, because I had some examples, but it also gave me some examples. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I should write that down. So let's start at the top: cell division, reproduction, weather systems, and growth cycles. So all of these things that we see and experience and hear about in daily life or just in biology class, they can all be replicated using ChatGPT. Again, you just need to ask very, very specifically what you're asking for. So if you want, let's say, a weather system, you can say, hey, here's my scene. It's currently daytime. How can I make it so that it randomly rains or snows or whatever else based on the time of the year, based on the time of day, based on, all these other factors that you can code yourself. Same thing with things like tissue damage and repair. Again, in the medical field, I think there's a lot of like super expensive, software to simulate all these different biological processes. Things like what's the one? Protein folding, where, again, that's a huge one where they're using like supercomputers to kind of predict how different cells and proteins inside our body might react to each other. And, I think, to me personally, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't recreate any of that software using just an iPhone, using just Swift, using just ChatGPT. So that's my personal opinion, is that a lot of this high level software that we've seen before, that we've probably never seen because it's in a laboratory somewhere, a lot of that software can be replicated using ChatGPT. Again, you just need to really know what you're asking for, but you can definitely get ChatGPT to simulate tissue damage and repair, or maybe a prey and predator relationship or reproduction. You can have two different agents and have them breed and pass on different genes based on their own genes, or even a night and day cycle. And then tips for realism. I just kind of threw this in here because, again, don't be afraid to ask ChatGPT what you're trying to ask it for. So, if I'm trying to ask it how to mimic nature and biology, I could, say, hey, how do I create cell division or something like that? But more specifically, I could say, hey, tell me, about cell division, just before I even ask it to make it. Just tell me about blah, 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 blah. Once it tells me the different sections, I can identify a specific section and say, hey, can you recreate this part using Swift code, and it will say, sure, certainly I can do that. Again, the more context it has about what you're talking about and how specific you're talking, it can definitely create some really great examples based on the content that you give it. All right, I think we're nearing the end of our slides. I didn't do too much for our slides here. So again, thanks for watching. I have some more examples here. We're not done. But future episodes, as I mentioned, will be on YouTube. So if you can follow us at nearfuture.marketing, I would really appreciate that. That's the YouTube channel. On Instagram, it's nearfuture.marketing. And on Twitter, it's nearfutureapps. But again, follow the YouTube because that's where all of our content is posted. And that's where our content will be live streamed in the future. And I think it will make it a lot better for questions, answers, and of course, keeping out bad actors. Sadly, we had some bad actors before, and that's why we don't currently have our crowd able to come on camera or the microphone, but I do want to get back to that. So we're working on that, but YouTube is where we will be next. If you found this meetup on LinkedIn or Eventbrite or somewhere else and you haven't actually joined the meetup, please go ahead and join the meetup. It's meetup.com/augmented reality today. And again, the meetup's been going for 8 years, or sorry, it's been going since 2018. And so if you'd like to keep up with our meetup, please go ahead and join the meetup group. It's really going to only get better from here. I have so many things I was just bussing to show you, but again, there's order and there's kind of some things that I need to follow first. And then check out our website. So nearfuture.marketing, that's my website. You can find all of my apps there. You can find our meetup there. You can find out any information about our meetup, any content that we've released. It will all be there. So let's actually head over to my website from here. And let me just quickly show you how to find some things about our meetup. So here's my website. It's nearfuture.marketing or nearfuturemarketing.com. I own both, but here's our home site. You go to Augmented Reality Today. This is where you can find everything related to our meetup. So again, if you'd like to join our meetup, please go ahead and join our meetup. If you'd like to see our next event, it's usually posted here, but of course that's currently. And then any past events, so our swag shop or virtual store, but any past events will be posted here. So our last event or all of our recordings can all be found here on the Augmented Reality Today page on our website, nearfuture.marketing. All right, so that's a quick look at the meetup. Let me take a quick look at our questions section just in case here. Q&A, let's see. And then we'll hop into some examples. For first timers like me, are there presentations, recordings available? Yes, the recording will be available. Is there Discord for the community on AR? Currently, there's no Discord. I've thought about it. If you're really interested in a Discord, maybe we can get that going because again, I think this year especially is going to be so huge. I don't want to like speculate, but I just think this is a big year for AR VR. I feel like I've been waiting 5 to 6 years for this year. So I'm very excited. And I feel like now all of my work that you can see, again, I started back in 2017, really. This is an even older picture before the meetup. This is when I was still volunteering to show up at random people's meetup. But yeah, since I was this guy here back in 2017, I've been waiting for a decent augmented reality headset, and I think we're closer than ever. So I think, again, learning about AR, VR right now is definitely like, if you're here, you're in the right place because it's only going to get better from here. Like right now, people aren't too worried about it. They know about it, but they're like, AR, VR. But I think by the end of the summer, it will be a huge deal. It will be a reactivated buzzword. AI is obviously a huge buzzword right now, and that's because it delivers. And I think this will be the first year that we fully get to see AR deliver in the way that experts like myself know it's possible to deliver. So I'm just going on a rant here. Let's go to chat.openai.com. And so this is where you can access ChatGPT. And so if you don't have an account, you'll need to make an account. And if you have one, welcome to ChatGPT. Now, there are different versions of ChatGPT. You can see right here, I have to flex a little bit. I am in the alpha for plugins. So this is a newer feature that most people don't have access to, but plugins allows ChatGPT to connect to the internet. So if I wanted to ask it for recipes and then ask it to order some things from Instacart, I can actually do that. We can use Wolfram to actually do great math and science and stuff. And we'll see in the plugin store, there's all these other plugins. So I think other people will have these in the future, but I just wanted to highlight this because, again, this really extends the functionality of ChatGPT. Right now, we're more so in the input-output kind of phase of things for most people. But I think this is the next phase where, again, why isn't ChatGPT booking you restaurant reservations, or why isn't it connected to your Google Sheets or your Gmail, or why isn't it maybe helping you shop for groceries or your next trip through Expedia? So very exciting things there. But we're not going to focus on the plugins at all. I just want to point out the different versions here for the people who don't know. So the default ChatGPT, I believe this is what's available for free. But this is the default ChatGPT 3.5. So it's optimized for speed. It's currently available to Plus users. So sorry, this one is actually only available to paid users, but this one's really fast. So you can see here, its speed is on level 4, its reasoning is about in the middle, and its conciseness is down to 2. So this one's pretty decent, but if you're paying $20 a month, you definitely should be using GPT-4. It's the most advanced model. You can see its reasoning is all the way up. Its conciseness is pretty high, and its speed is a bit lower. But again, I'd rather a really correct answer that took a little bit longer to get versus a really wrong answer that I got in 3 seconds. So, GPT-4 is what I'll be using today to give you all of these different examples. And then legacy. So this is most likely what you're using if you're using the free version. Again, its reasoning, its speed, its conciseness are all a little bit lower. So I think, yeah, that's the main difference here is the speed is much higher on the default 3.5 than it is here on the legacy. But yeah, so GPT-4 is the newest, latest, greatest version of ChatGPT. And as I mentioned, you want to really get it into a corner. Now, I have tons of examples here. I could probably show you everything I've ever asked it, and you'd be like, whoa, that's a great example. But for today, I did narrow down some specific examples from our slides. So let's start with this here, because I asked ChatGPT, hey, what could be some advanced use cases of ChatGPT in XR? And it gave me some different answers. I won't read everything, but I will read kind of the highlights here. So virtual assistants and guides, we talked about this, we looked at those, but they can be used to create virtual assistants that provide guidance, answer questions, and offer support in environments such as workspaces, museums, tourism experiences. Fantastic. Imagine having an AR headset and you get to Italy and poof, out flies this little robot character who's a hologram, and he can tell you, oh, there's the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and there's the Eiffel Tower, and this way is to the old part of Italy, and this way is to the new part. So again, this is something you can build like today. Like I'm giving you real examples. You could build this app today. There's no limitations. There's no missing APIs. There's no missing code. All the code to do this is here right now. Real-time language translation. I'd be careful with this one, but yeah, you could technically use it for translations. Accessibility solutions. So this is another great one that I didn't think about, but yeah, you could definitely use ChatGPT in XR to provide real-time transcriptions, descriptions, sign language interpretations, all sorts of things. Interactive gaming, we talked about. Social emotional support, that's great. This is a good one. Smart home and IoT integration. So you can use ChatGPT to control and manage smart devices on IoT systems. So again, think about all the things that Siri can do right now. I have a couple HomePods, and I can ask my HomePod, hey, find my phone. Hey, find my keys. Hey, turn on the lights. Hey, set a timer, right? But right now, Siri's not the smartest. And so sometimes Siri will get things wrong when I'm asking her things, or she might mess up my timer, or I might, provide a little bit too much information when I'm talking, and she just doesn't understand that much context. And that's where ChatGPT does understand a lot of context. So again, it really could make a great system to interface with your smart home and other Internet of Things devices. Personalized marketing. So you can use ChatGPT to create personalized marketing campaigns within XR. So this is something, again, I didn't think about, but think about like going to a business and saying, hey, wouldn't you like to create a marketing campaign in VR that's specific to your business or even your customer? And again, depending on how much work you put into this, this could be something that adjusts and changes for that specific customer based on their profile, based on their past purchases. So, I mean, imagine like walking into a store that adjusts based on who you are. I mean, it sounds crazy to us because we're like, a store is a static place. You go there, you buy what they have, you go home. But in XR, yeah, we could have a store that changes and redesigns itself based on who you are, based on what you've bought in the past, based on what they think you'll buy in the future. I mean, we already do this with websites, but imagine doing this in like a 3D space. Huge. And of course, creative expression to generate new ideas in art. We all know that. So those are just some really quick examples. Again, you could ask it the same question again. So let's actually do that, because every time you ask ChatGPT, or it looks like I did already. Let's see here. Maybe not. Okay, so yeah, every time you ask ChatGPT the same question, you're going to get slightly different answers. So if I hit save and submit again, it'll go through all of this, and you'll notice that once it starts giving us our list here, the list might be similar, but it will be different. Like, it won't have the exact same words. Here we are, virtual assistants and guides. But again, you can see this time it didn't mention museums at all, immersive language learning, collaborative design, and we'll let that keep going. Let's take a look at some of the examples that we talked about. And so we'll start with this one. So this one's really straightforward. I said, hey, give me a Swift function that takes in an SCN node and animates it to appear like it's dancing. So if you're a complete beginner, SCN node, this basically just means 3D model. So I'm saying, hey, in the language Swift, which is Apple's programming language, can you create some code that takes in a 3D model and makes it look like it's dancing? And it says, hey, well, first you gotta do this. And then once you have those things, you can go ahead and create this function, which will animate that node as dancing. And again, I could show this off and demo it, but we won't have too much time. So what we will do is we'll go ahead and copy this. And we'll go back into my website. We'll go to AR Today. And if you scroll down right here, you'll see the Learning Materials button. And inside the Learning Materials button, you'll see all of our folders, so past and present, all of our events. And right here in advanced use cases of ChatGPT, I created this links, resources, and tips. And I'm actually going to paste this code in here as well, because why not? There we go. And you can see there's some other code that I pasted in here. But definitely try this out. If you have a SceneKit scene ready, go ahead and paste this into your view controller and try animating a node using this dancing code. But again, very simple example. You can see it creates a series of movement animations. So we have a move up animation, move down, rotate, and then it creates this sequence of moving up and down and rotating, and it creates this animation group and it puts them all together and makes a little dance. Similarly, we have the metal. So metal, again, this is referring to a shader. And again, if you're not really privy to these things, if you're not aware of them, this may seem, not even may seem, this is an advanced topic. But I will say again, GPT is making it really simple here. I said, hey, Swift code to animate a 3D model and make it jiggle like Jello using a metal shader. And again, because I'm an experienced programmer, I know the buzzwords. So the buzzwords are Swift, SCN node, and metal shader. And by using these three things, now ChatGPT knows exactly what coding language I'm talking about. It knows exactly, what a metal shader is, and it knows exactly what it needs to do. So it went through and it wrote this metal shader out. Then it tells me that I need to load it as an SCN program. And then it tells me how to apply it to our node. And then finally, I think here it got stuck. So here's a pro tip. You can see here it was coding and it just kind of stopped. And what I did is I said, hey, please finish coding the assignment. It says, I apologize, and it kept coding the rest of the assignment. So definitely, if you see ChatGPT error out like this, if it forgets something, just ask it to finish. But otherwise, yeah, take these really abstract ideas, these things like jiggling like Jello. This is something that as a human, our human brain definitely knows what jiggle like Jello means. But I think, this is what you should be testing ChatGPT for. It's not, hey, what's 1 + 1, or hey, can you make some code that makes a 3D box that's really big? No, we want ChatGPT to do the natural, weird things that we just can't describe how it works. I can't tell you how Jello jiggles, but what I can tell you is what Jello looks like when it jiggles. And so by asking it to create this code, we have a starting point. It may not be perfect, it may not be exact, but if it looks like it's jiggling, then I probably just need to adjust a few numbers, maybe turn that 20 into a 10, maybe turn this 5 into a 4, and we can get that jiggle to look exactly like Jello. And so that's what you should be doing, is you should be asking it to do natural things and just adjusting, polishing until you get exactly what you're looking for. We don't have too much time, so again, I'll just kind of go through a few more examples here. In this example, we said Swift function to randomly scramble any input message based on a key. Any spaces should be randomly replaced with a $sign, a number sign, or a star. Also create a unscramble function. So this is the example we talked about. I have a secret message. My secret message says hello world, and I want my message to be scrambled up so that no one else can read that secret message unless I give them the password. And that's exactly what ChatGPT did for us. It created this function here called scramble. The scramble function, just like we requested, takes in a message, which is some text or a string, and it also takes in a key, which is a number. And once it has those two things, it will send you back a new string or a new set of text, which should be the scrambled text. You can see here we have our space replacements, we have our characters, and what it did is it mapped our characters based on, I'm not exactly sure what it based it on, but basically it created a map of our characters so that it could scramble the message. And you can see right here, it just shuffles that message up, and then it returns that shuffled joined up message, and we get out some output that probably looks like gibberish, and vice versa. If I wanted to unscramble that, we'll take that same scrambled message, we'll pass it into our unscramble function here. We'll also pass it the key, and it should return back the original message. And as long as the key is correct, we'll get the right message. But again, if that key, let's say the key originally was the number 420, and instead I type in 421, well, just changing that one number will completely ruin the message and I'll never be able to decode it. So again, really, really basic example. And you can see right here at the bottom, it says, here's our message, hello world, there's our key. And again, it would print our scramble message, and then we can always unscramble that message as well. So again, I'd love to demonstrate all these, but I think it's better to just show you how I got these answers rather than what the answers created, because there's just too many things that we could do here. This one was really cool, and it's not something I expected. This is something ChatGPT told me it could do, so I tried. And it looks like I tried a few times. So let's see what else we did. Yeah, you can see how I got to this answer. So up here at the top, once you ask ChatGPT a question, you can keep asking questions and it will take in all the content that it's already generated. So everything that's above your message will be taken into account when you're asking your question. But if you don't want it to do that, if you want it to just ask a new question unrelated to what it's already given you, you can just hit the next button here or the save and resubmit. And what that does is you start a new message and it will have a new response. So here I put, how could ChatGPT use to mimic natural biological processes? You can see it came up with some explanation. Now, I don't think I like that much. So I went again and I said, list examples, and see the difference here. I asked here, how could, and it told me, here's how you could do it. But rather than doing that, I said, hey, okay, I need some solid examples. I'm about to host a meetup in a few hours. And it said, okay, here, there's cell division, there's protein synthesis, there's neuron signaling, there's photosynthesis, there's blood circulation, there's enzyme substrate interaction, there's tissue growth and repair. And again, like, I'm not a medical student, I didn't study any of these processes, but by taking ChatGPT's own language and just pasting it back in. So I took this one, protein synthesis. So I took number 2 here, and I just simply copied the text that it gave me all the way, copy, and then down here I said create a Swift function that, and I just pasted in exactly what ChatGPT said that it could do. And then I added in this piece here. I said use whatever SE and geometry you think is appropriate to visualize different parts. And the reason I did this is because, ideally we'll have a 3D model that I bought or built and I'm using inside of this app. That's ideally what we would have. But if you don't have any 3D models, you can always use what's called geometry, just basic cubes, circles, spheres, cylinders. And that way, ChatGPT has something you can work with without using some 3D models that you still need to go out and buy and size and all these other things. And by asking it to do that with my specifications of using geometry, you can see it did exactly that. It creates the app, it creates the actual scene view, it creates the 3D view, it sets up the lighting, the camera controls, everything we need. And it creates this function that takes in just the scene, and it creates a ribosome and an mRNA and tRNA, and it's doing all these highly complex biological processes that I'm not really knowledgeable in, but being able to simulate this on an iPhone with my limited medical knowledge, I think is amazing. And you could only imagine how far I could go if I had an actual medical book or if I actually went to med school. I mean, there's just really unlimited possibilities here, and that's why I'd rather show you than give you the actual example here. So let's show you one more before I wrap things up here. This one was to encode or decode DNA. So similar to our scrambled message function, but this is real science that at one point was a very hard challenge that someone figured out. And now I can just ask ChatGPT and we can recreate and simulate the whole thing in 3D on an iPhone. I mean, how cool is that? But you can see here to encode or decode DNA, you can use Swift code to work with the sequences of nucleotides. For visualizing the DNA molecule using SCN geometry, which again, I wanted to visualize a DNA molecule without having to give it a 3D model, you can create a 3D model of the DNA structure using SceneKit. Here's a simple example. And so right here, you can see it has our DNA, it has nucleotides, we have adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. For those of you who remember that from biology class, the ACGT base pairs that we have there. And it really did create some code to actually encode and decode different DNA. So I, again, am not a medical student. I don't know too much about this. I'm just someone who actually paid attention when I was in biology class. But I would love to take something like an actual DNA molecule and visualize it using this code on an iPhone in augmented reality. And I'm pretty sure you could probably do that, at least within the limitations of the memory, because again, there's 2 million molecules. You might run out of memory there, but this is huge. I mean, I could talk about this all day. I could show you examples, but I think just understanding that whatever you've seen in a science or biology book can be recreated using AR, VR, and ChatGPT, I think that's a huge game changer. I think you should play with this as much as possible. And again, yeah, if you have a science book, whip that thing out and just try some of those examples, because you never know what you'll get back from ChatGPT. So that's really it. I wish, today's meetup was more focused on examples. The last two were ChatGPT, so we had to really focus on, hey, here's the output. And I didn't really visualize anything, but our next meetup, we're really going to go back to our roots. We're going to go back to just creating apps from scratch with no coding experience at all. So for those of you who are beginners, who are like, this was cool, but it's also way over my head, don't worry. This is, again, that's what this was about. It's for those people who know how to program, who know how to use AI, and are just like, oh, how can I mix these two together? But in our next meetup, we're going to try to get a little bit away from AI and just really focus back in on AR, VR, how to build an app from scratch, how to make something that's just really cool, and having a working example by the end of the class. So thank you so much for joining. Again, if you go to my website, one more time here, it's nearfuture.marketing. Go to Augmented Reality Day. You can join our meetup from right here. If you click the join our meetup button, it should get you there to meetup.com where you can join. Again, we really appreciate any reviews, especially the 5-star ones. Really, I only get the 5-star ones, but yeah, 5-star reviews, much appreciated. Go ahead and join our meetup. We're 705 members and growing. If you'd like to donate, I really appreciate that as well. And then let's go ahead and one more time highlight that, again, our learning materials are here, and the recording of this meetup will be posted here later today. Before I wrap things up, I do want to double check that there's not any new questions. Dismiss. I'm new to AR, but you got me pumped up. I'm glad, because honestly, if you're watching this right now, like I think AR hit this spot where it was really hyped up, and then it started to kind of trickle, and the metaverse got involved, and too many people got confused between NFTs and metaverse and all these other things. But what I want to tell you is that AR, VR is the core technology. It is a huge deal. It's not going away. There's just been so many gimmicks that kind of left a bad taste in people's mouth. And I think right now with ChatGPT, it's really exciting to see the results that you can get from AI. And so that's why I've kind of pivoted and matched these together. Like, hey, here's ChatGPT and Swift, and here's ChatGPT and AR, VR. But this is the core technology. We're going to see some really amazing things by the end of this year. And I'm so excited. So it's only going to get better from here. Join the YouTube, join the meetup, and I really look forward to our next event. So again, thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate your time, and I am looking forward to next time. Take care. And if you have any last questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. But thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next time.